What if you could sit across from one of history's greatest minds and ask them, what did it really cost you? What did no one see? Last night, I dreamed of Thomas Jefferson, not the marble statue, not the founding father in the textbook, but the man, broken, doubting, grieving, and somehow still writing words that would outlive empires. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "They remember what I built, but they forget what I lost to build it." Before we begin this journey, if you find value in stories like these, stories that strip away the legend and reveal the human struggle underneath, please hit that like button and subscribe. These dreams come to me for a reason, and I share them so they can reach you too. Now, let me take you into the dream. My nights are not quiet. I have strange dreams. Dreams where history speaks back to me. One night, I met Thomas Jefferson in my dream. The room was dim, lit only by a single candle flickering on a wooden desk covered in papers and ink-stained quills. The air smelled of old parchment and tobacco, and there he sat, tall, red-haired, slouched slightly as if the weight of his own thoughts was pressing down on his shoulders. He looked up at me, and for a moment I thought he might ask who I was. But he didn't. Instead, he smiled, a sad, knowing smile, and said, "You've come to hear about the glory, haven't you? About the Declaration, about Monticello, about the presidency." I shook my head. "No, I want to know what it cost you." His smile faded. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Then sit," he said, "because no one asks that question anymore." And so I sat, and Thomas Jefferson, architect of American independence, author of freedom's most famous words, began to tell me about his life. Not the story carved in marble, but the one written in scars. "I was not born into legend," he began, his voice low and deliberate. "I was born into expectation." Jefferson leaned back, eyes distant, as if looking through the walls and into his past. "My father, Peter Jefferson, was a man of the land, strong, capable, respected. He built our family from nothing, surveyed wilderness, drew maps where none existed. He was the kind of man who made the world bend to his will." He paused, and then he died. I was 14 years old. I saw the flicker of pain cross his face, still raw, even in a dream, even across centuries. Suddenly, I was the man of the house, thousands of acres, dozens of slaves, my mother, my siblings, all of it mine to manage. At 14, I was supposed to know what my father spent a lifetime learning. He looked down at his hands. I was terrified. Every decision felt impossible. Every night, I lay awake wondering if I was failing him, failing everyone. I buried myself in books because books didn't judge me. Books didn't expect me to be my father. "Is that when you started writing?" I asked. "No," he said quietly. "That's when I started hiding." Jefferson stood and walked to the window, looking out at nothing, or perhaps at everything. "I went to William and Mary, studied law. People said I was brilliant. They said I had a mind for philosophy, for language, for ideas." He laughed bitterly. What they didn't see was the paralysis. I could think 1,000 thoughts, but speaking them, standing in a courtroom and defending a man's life with my voice. He shook his head. I was terrified of public speaking. My voice would crack. My hands would shake. I'd prepare for hours, days, and then stand there silent, choking on my own words. I leaned forward. "But you became a lawyer. You argued cases." "I did," he said. "Badly at first. I lost cases I should have won. I watched men suffer because I couldn't find my voice when it mattered." He turned back to me, and his eyes were fierce. "Do you know what that does to a man? To have ideas burning inside you, ideas that could change lives, and to be trapped in your own silence. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. So I wrote, he continued. I wrote because the page didn't stare back at me. The page didn't mock my stutter or my hesitation. On the page, I could be bold. He sat down again, slower this time. But writing is lonely, and it doesn't pay. And while I was scribbling philosophy, my debts were piling up. Money, Jefferson said, almost spitting the word. Do you know what they don't tell you about greatness? That it's expensive. He gestured around the dream room at the imagined walls of Monticello. I wanted to build something beautiful. I wanted a home that reflected everything I believed in: symmetry, reason, enlightenment. So I designed Monticello. Every column, every window, every detail. His face darkened, and it nearly destroyed me. I borrowed, and borrowed again. I expanded the house. I bought more land. I imported books, art, wine. I hosted dinners for every important person in Virginia because that's what you did if you wanted influence. He laughed, but there was no joy in it. And the debts grew. They followed me everywhere. Every letter I opened was another creditor. Every visitor to my door might be a debt collector. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't think. The thing I built to express my freedom became the thing that imprisoned me. Why didn't you stop? I asked. Because I couldn't, he said simply. Once you start, you can't stop. If you stop building, you lose everything. If you sell the land, you're admitting failure. If you cut back, people notice. They talk. They say you're weak. So you keep going. You keep borrowing. You keep pretending. He leaned forward, and his voice dropped to a whisper. For 40 years, I lived with that weight. Even when I was president. Even when I was celebrated. I was drowning. Jefferson's hands trembled slightly as he reached for a glass of wine on the desk. He drank slowly, then set it down. 1782, he said. The worst year of my life. His voice was barely audible now. Martha, my wife, was dying. I felt the air in the room grow heavier. We had been married 10 years. 6 children, only 2 survived infancy. Every pregnancy weakened her. Every loss broke us a little more. He closed his eyes. The doctors said another child would kill her. She got pregnant anyway. Our son lived only a few weeks. And Martha, his voice cracked. She lasted 4 months. For months of watching her fade. For months of sitting by her bed, reading to her, holding her hand, promising her things I couldn't promise. A tear slid down his cheek. She made me promise I wouldn't remarry. She couldn't bear the thought of another woman raising our daughters. So I promised. And then she died. He opened his eyes, and they were hollow. I didn't leave my room for 3 weeks. I paced. I wept. I burned her letters because I couldn't bear to read them. My daughter said she was terrified I would die too. That grief would kill me. How did you survive? I whispered. I don't know that I did, he said. Part of me died with her. The part that felt joy easily. The part that believed in simple happiness. He looked at me. What survived was duty, responsibility, the belief that if I stopped moving, I would disappear entirely. 1776, Jefferson said, his tone shifting slightly, as if he was trying to pull himself back from the edge of that grief. Congress asked me to draft a declaration, a statement of why we were breaking from Britain. He laughed softly. I didn't want to do it. I was 33 years old. There were older men, wiser men, better speakers. John Adams should have written it. He had the fire, but he insisted I do it. Why? Because he said I had a peculiar felicity of expression, meaning I could make treason sound noble. Jefferson stood and began pacing. I wrote it in 2 weeks, alone, in a rented room in Philadelphia. It was hot, unbearably hot. Flies everywhere. I was sweating through my shirt, scribbling by candlelight, crossing out sentences, rewriting, starting over. He stopped pacing. I poured everything into those words. Every idea I'd ever had about freedom, about rights, about what it means to be human. I tried to make it perfect. His face twisted. And then Congress tore it apart. What? They cut nearly a quarter of it. Entire passages gone. My words about slavery, deleted. Too controversial. My language about the king, softened. Too harsh. He slammed his hand on the desk. I sat there, silent, while they gutted my work. Every cut felt like a knife, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't defend it. I just sat there, watching them destroy it. But it still became the Declaration of Independence, I said. It still changed the world. Yes, he said quietly, but it wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs. It was ours. He looked at me. That's the cost of greatness. You give birth to something and then you have to let it go. You have to let others reshape it, claim it, interpret it. You have to watch your words take on lives you never intended. After Martha died, I couldn't stay in Virginia, Jefferson said. The memories were suffocating. So when Congress offered to send me to France as a diplomat, I accepted. France was supposed to be an escape, a fresh start. He smiled faintly. It was chaos. I arrived in 1784. France was teetering on the edge of revolution. The monarchy was bankrupt. The people were starving. And I, an American barely speaking French, was supposed to negotiate trade agreements and secure loans. He shook his head. I was in over my head. I worked 18-hour days. I wrote letters to Congress begging for clear instructions that never came. I attended endless dinners with French aristocrats who looked down on me, who saw America as a backwater experiment that would collapse within a decade. And meanwhile, he continued, my debts back home were growing. My daughters were with me, but I was barely a father. I was too consumed with work, with survival. Did you succeed? Eventually, he said, but not because I was brilliant, because I learned to endure. I learned to smile through contempt. I learned to negotiate when I had no leverage. I learned that diplomacy is just another word for suffering politely. 1800, Jefferson said, I became president. He said it without pride. Do you know how much I hated that election? It was vicious. They called me an atheist, a radical, a threat to the Republic. Aaron Burr tried to steal it from me. It went to the House of Representatives, 36 ballots before I won. He rubbed his temples. And then I had to govern. I had to unite a country that despised me. I had to make decisions that contradicted everything I believed in. Like what? The Louisiana Purchase, he said immediately. I didn't have constitutional authority to buy that land, but if I didn't, France would control the Mississippi and America would be trapped. So I did it anyway. I violated my own principles to save the country. His voice grew harder. And then there was the Embargo Act. Britain and France were at war, seizing American ships. So I cut off all trade, hoping to force them to respect us. He closed his eyes. It destroyed the American economy. Merchants went bankrupt. Sailors lost their jobs. People suffered. And they blamed me, rightfully. I thought I could lead through reason, he said quietly. But the presidency isn't about reason. It's about impossible choices. It's about being hated no matter what you do. Jefferson was silent for a long time. Then he said, "You want to know about Sally Hemings?" I didn't answer. She was Martha's half-sister, born into slavery at Monticello. She came with me to France as my daughter's maid. His voice was flat, emotionless. I was 44. She was 16. He looked at me. What do you want me to say? That I loved her? That it was mutual? That it was complicated? He shook his head. It was wrong. She couldn't say no, not really. I had all the power, and I used it. For nearly 40 years. His hands clenched. I wrote, all men are created equal. I spoke about liberty and rights. And I owned people. I fathered children with a woman I owned. How do you reconcile that? I asked. I don't, he said simply. There is no reconciliation. There is only the truth. I was a hypocrite. I believed one thing and lived another. He met my eyes. That's the real cost. Not the debt. Not the grief. Not the political battles. It's knowing that everything you built is stained. That your legacy will always be divided. That some will call you a hero and some will call you a monster, and both will be right. Jefferson stood and walked back to the desk. He picked up a worn copy of the Declaration, its edges frayed. You came here to learn how I turned my ideas into change, he said. I nodded. The truth. He set the document down. I didn't. Not really. I frowned. What do you mean? I wrote words, he said. I wrote beautiful, powerful words about freedom and equality. And those words inspired people. They still do. He looked at the Declaration. But words without action are ghosts. And my actions never matched my words. Then what's the lesson? I asked. What do you want me to take from this? Jefferson sat down one last time, and when he spoke, his voice was soft but firm. The lesson is this: you will fail. You will contradict yourself. You will make choices that haunt you. You will build things that collapse. You will hurt people you don't mean to hurt. He leaned forward. But you keep going. Not because you're perfect. Not because you're sure. But because the work matters more than your comfort. Because the future depends on people willing to try, even when they fail. Change doesn't come from heroes, he said. It comes from flawed people who refuse to stop. He stood and extended his hand. That's what I learned. That's what I'm passing to you. I took his hand and then I woke up. I lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling. The dream felt too real, too raw, too honest. Thomas Jefferson was not a saint. He was not a simple hero. He was a man who dreamed impossible dreams and lived an impossible life. A life of contradiction, of brilliance and blindness, of soaring words and crushing failures. But what stayed with me was not his perfection. It was his endurance. He carried grief that should have broken him. He shouldered debts that should have drowned him. He faced criticism that should have silenced him. He lived with contradictions that should have destroyed him. And still he wrote. Still he built. Still he tried. That's the real lesson. Not that greatness is easy, but that it's possible even when you're drowning, even when you're failing, even when you're flawed. Jefferson taught me that the cost of change is everything. Your peace, your certainty, your comfort, sometimes even your integrity. But the cost of not trying, that's even higher. So tonight I will sleep, and tomorrow I will try again, because that's what he did. That's what all of them did. The people history remembers and the people it forgets. They tried, they failed, they got up, and they tried again. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that greatness is not perfection but persistence, please like this video and subscribe. These dreams come to me for a reason, and I share them so they might reach someone who needs to hear them. Asterisk asterisk. Thank you for walking through history with me tonight. Until the next dream.